retirement, discipline, dismissal, release. The board unanimously accepted the resignation, the retirement of a teacher at Hoopa Valley High School and resignation of a teacher at Hoopa Valley Elementary School and the resignation of an instructional assistant special needs classified at Hoopa Valley High School. The board unanimously approved the following positions. Volleyball coach stipend, Hoopa Valley High School, Amber McCovey. Assistant varsity football coach stipend, Hoopa Valley High School, Merwin Clark. Literacy paraprofessional classified, Hoopa Valley Elementary School, Nachko McCovey Jr. Instructional assistant special needs classified, Hoopa Valley High School, Keela Anda. Custodian 1 classified district-wide, Patricia Scott. That was a transfer. A varsity football coach, non-stipend, Travis Sims Burton. JV volleyball coach stipend, Hoopa Valley High School, Nikolai Valentine. Boys golf coach stipend, Hoopa Valley High School, Bradley Johnson. Public comment. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public may address board on matters within the subject jurisdiction of the board. Time limits generally 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes per subject will be imposed by the board president. Written comments are limited to 400 words. The board president may rule on the appropriateness of a topic. If the topic will be more suitably addressed at a later time, the president may indicate the time and place when it should be presented. The board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions as outlined in Government Code 54954.3. In addition, the board may not prohibit public criticism of district employees. Whenever a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee, the board president shall inform the complainant that in order to protect the employee's rights to adequate notice before a hearing of such complaints and charges, and also to preserve the ability of the board to legally consider the complaints or charges in any subsequent evaluation of the employee, it is the policy of the board to hear such complaints or charges in closed session unless otherwise requested by the employee pursuant to Government Code 54957. The board president shall also encourage the complainant to file a complaint using the appropriate district complaint procedure. Public comment and communication on non-agenda items to include Indian policies and procedures. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public may address the board on matters not on the agenda if such matters are within the subject jurisdiction of the board. Did we receive any public comments on non-agenda items or Indian policies and procedures?
Yes, we received 2, and 2 missed the time deadline. I'll go ahead and read the 2. Dear KTJUSD trustees and employees, my name is Amber McCovey Billings, and I am the ACES site lead for Hoopa Elementary. I am writing this letter in response to Phase 5 that is being discussed to be implemented after Phase 4. I have a concern with one of the topics that I noticed in the drafts with TK/K students being allowed to remain with the ACES program while waiting for pickup. Not only is this a wide open statement, it also adds more students to an already stressed program due to the many procedures we have to follow. Everything looks great on paper, but when you are hands-on involved, it isn't easy. At times feels close to impossible. I am someone who works hard every day, who not only does my job, but helps wherever I can. A start would have been to ask staff what they thought and how it could be done. One of my main concerns is the lack of transparency and communication that is happening within the district when it comes to implementing these phases. This directly affects the program that I am responsible for running. During this pandemic, due to social distancing guidelines, we have had to decrease our enrollment by almost 50%. Are we planning to drop the social distancing guidelines? Are we planning to open up to full enrollment? This is the limbo that we are in. I currently have over 15 students on a wait list to get into our program. Our parents and students are confused with the constant changes that keep occurring. ACES is here for our students that are enrolled, but my confusion is this. Are we here to provide a space or a safe space? These phases have been moving quickly, and I, for one, am exceptionally happy to see the kids on campus. After all this, why we do what we do. ACES staff not only work for ACES, we also have obligations as screeners, teacher aides, transportation, outreach, and others due to the many open positions at our site. We are literally doing everything we can to help our students and have been at the front lines of this pandemic since the beginning. I think before we start adding more duties to the staff, we should be focusing on strengthening the procedures and recruiting more employees to fill the many unfilled positions that we have at this time. She went over by 169 words, so I stopped at the 400.
You had a second letter?
Yes, the second one is Maggie Peters to the Honorable Trustees. On behalf of the Ktta members, I am writing to communicate concerns voiced at the general meeting held on April 19th, 2021. Here is a list of concerns in response to implementation of in-person learning. Insufficient planning / lack of communication for on-campus food services during school hours. Please eliminate messy foods. Granola and yogurt doesn't work. Protocol on where and how to eat food. Perhaps timed access to cafeterias for grade span groups to eat. Eliminate eating outdoors / at play or in smaller spaces / classrooms. Student pickup / drop off. Insufficient space for students to wait for parents / bus. Currently standing shoulder to shoulder. Perhaps staggering pickup times 5 to 10 minutes between grade span groups. Student use of additional / appropriate exits. Use of bus horns, too loud to use when students are present. Rotation schedule for PE / playground. Avoid mix of student cohorts on playground. Develop a consistent schedule among classes. Need cleaning protocol between use. Insufficient resources and staff. No one at JNES and WES 2.5 days a week to support teachers with screening or monitoring a student in isolation. Lack of outreach to students who are non-responsive to teacher contact efforts. Lack of Chromebook backup for in-person instruction. No place to charge a dead Chromebook. No place to store them on campus. No replacements for forgotten or broken Chromebooks. Uncertainty with cleaning of rooms. Appears only trash is taken out. General lack of following district health and safety protocols with fidelity, and at some schools seem to be ignoring them completely with regard to distancing and preparation for emergencies. Thank you for working to address these concerns. Respectively, Maggie Peters.
Thank you.
More comment, but it goes on. It's for action item 7G.
Okay, so when we get to that one, we'll, okay. That was 7G.
7G.
Okay.
So Lorely, those comments that came in after this fact, can we listen to them or?
Okay, we'll have the superintendent's report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm back in my Zoom room. So I have my report, which just goes over the categories of governance, reminding anyone that did not see the training that we had with Mindy Fattig who's the director of the Humboldt-Del Norte County SELPA, and reviewing special education services and some of the special education finances. Under leadership and administration, I talked about our leadership team worked and developed an electronic communication protocol along with staff. It was kind of over the course of multiple weeks. Since we've had such a heavy reliance on electronic communication this year, that was a good step to take. In our leadership team with our MTSS, our multi-tiered system of support, each month we meet and we get updates about the social, emotional, academic, and behavioral components of our MTSS. And we've begun an initiative, an inventory of all of the programs and services that we have for our students. So we're just trying to coordinate the services because we know that we have a lot of robust and rich services. And in the other part of leadership is just the continued training that our district office staff have in coordination with the county office. In terms of student services, we have, we'll be sending out interest surveys to families. From our staff, we have an indication that that there are 18 certificated staff that are interested in working in the extended school year, or what our summer school. 5 said definitely and 13 said probably. And then we had a number of classified staff that are interested in working in summer school. The LCAP is on as a discussion item. So I'm just going to go on to the next thing. Labor relations. We also have California School Employees Association, our tentative agreements and our revised restructured salary schedule are on the agenda for ratification by the board. And then with the other part of our labor partners are the Klamath Trinity Teachers Association. We've met 4 times for the collective bargaining agreement. The district has made a financial proposal to Ktta, including a one-time payment of $1,000 for the current year and for the upcoming school year 21-22 to add in 5 additional working days being paid at a daily rate of $450 and increasing the health and welfare cap to $18,000 for next year only. That was a 1 year. And then Ktta also shared with the district their financial proposal of asking $1,000 for health and welfare for the 2019-2020 school year, and increase the health and welfare benefit cap of $18,000 and a 4% on schedule salary raise. We also shared with Ktta a memorandum of understanding in order to offer newly hired employees a hiring bonus totaling $3,600 that would be paid over 2 years for the 2021 and 2022 school years. And Ktta asked if the district has offered a retirement incentive, and neither the district nor the union has proposed a retirement incentive for the 2021 school year. It just came up in discussion. And then with our hybrid and in-person learning MOU, Ktta has indicated that it approves and is in agreement with the hybrid learning MOU that you have that's on the agenda this evening. And so it's on for tonight for approval. And then Ktta has a meeting scheduled to ratify that later this week is what our understanding is. And then the other part of my report is a letter from the County Office of Education that is noting that they accepted our positive certification of our second interim budget report, and then has details as to specific things that the county office is looking to have us address in the future. So that's my part. I see that, and I have do we have our special guests on, Jacqueline? So in addition to my report, I have something much more interesting than me, which is a message from our students. So they're on as my guests as part of my soup report. So we have some students from Trinity Valley that are just going to give a less than 1 minute insight into student life. Hi, girls. Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Okay. Good evening, school board members. My name is Hannah McCullough. And I'm Haley Ware. Thank you for allowing us to share this evening. I am this year's 8th grade class president. And I'm the 8th grade class vice president. This evening, we were invited to come speak about how this year's ASB is going and what we're doing to benefit our school. In order to continue our fundraising efforts is in a safe manner, we have to be cautious and creative. Some upcoming events include various basket raffles and a staff lunch on the Trinity Valley School campus. Miss Dina has been our ASB supervisor. We have weekly Zoom meetings discussing fundraising, COVID-19 safety, and she helps support our ideas. To bring back school spirit, we have been creating social distancing posters and encouraging sanitary precaution videos. Tonight, we would love to share one of our videos made by 3 ASB members, including ourselves and Scarlett Cornelson. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, girls. We
David.
wanted to get them on early before the end of the night. So here's the video. Thanks.
Here you go. The sound's not working, David. We can't hear it. Darn, the sound's not working. Can you guys hear the sound? No.
No.
Is that kids from Wolf?
Oh,
Or where are
it
they?
is. They're all ASB kids that made a hand washing video. I wish you could hear the sound, but it's about 40 seconds, I think, the whole video, but I'll have to email it out to you guys so you guys can see the whole thing. It's super, it was great. And there's a few groups that have done this that we're posting to the website too. So you'll be able to look at it there. Sorry about the sound.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thanks, girls. Yeah, we can get that out. And Jacqueline, you did say it's on your website?
It will be on our website. We were having a few little difficulties with putting it on there, and there's the learning curve there. So, and we have a couple others too that will be on there. So yes, stay tuned. Give me a couple days and I'll have it up there and everybody can look at it. It's pretty fun. So we're sharing them with the classes.
Thank you. That was my big ending to my soup report. So
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, girls. And thank you, Trinity Valley. That was great. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Sue, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Okay, I move to approve items in the consent agenda with a provision for inclusion of board member corrections to items E through I board meeting minutes for January 20, February 9, and March 1st, 9th, and 16th.
Is there a second? Caduce just seconds. All in favor, roll call vote, Dana.
All right, roll call. Trustee Waddy,
Aye.
Trustee Purcell,
Aye.
Trustee Lara Colgrove.
Yeah.
Trustee Wow,
Aye.
Trustee Myers,
E.
Trustee McLaughlin,
Aye.
Trustee George.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved and unanimously. Action items. Action item 7A, the 2019-2020 audit. The recommendation is to accept the 1920 audit. I'll entertain a motion, and then we have the auditor, I believe, waiting in the wings here. Is there a motion to accept the audit?
I make a motion to accept.
Debbie
accept the
moves.
audit.
Caduce just seconds, so we'll have the presentation from the auditor, then we will vote.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Shiloh Garospe, and I'm your audit partner with iBailey. I also have here with us tonight our audit manager who really oversaw the day-to-day of the audit timeline and the completion, and that's Kirtan Shaw. So he's here in case we have any specific questions that I can't answer. So I'll go really quickly over the results of the audit. I'm going to share my screen, and I think I've got this down now because we've done it plenty. So hopefully you can all see my screen, and let me see if I can make it a little larger. I apologize if it's small from where you're looking. You know, the great thing about our audit is that although this is over 100-page document, I can tell you the results of the audit in a single page. So I have that page up on my screen right now. And if you are following along with your copy of the audit report, if you're in electronic copy, it's PDF page 94, but it is also report page 87. And sorry about that. There we go. And so, with our audit, we're reporting on, as mentioned, the June 30, 2020 fiscal year end. And with our audit, we're actually included in this over 100-page document. We're providing you 4 specific reports on the audit. And one is the report specifically to the financial statements and providing you an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly presented based on our audit. That is the goal of our audit. That is the main opinion that we're providing you. So with respect to the opinion on the financial statement, it is an unmodified opinion, and that is the highest level of assurance that we can provide you in an audit. And it basically means that based on our audit, we do believe that the financial statements as presented here are materially stated. So that's one of the 4 reports that are included in this document tonight. The second report included in this document is what we refer to as our report on internal control over the financial reporting. This is a required report in accordance with our government auditing standards because you're a school district and you receive money from the government. And with this report, it is not an opinion on internal controls. I do like to provide that clarity to you. Rather, during the course of our audit, it is our responsibility to understand your internal controls. And if during the course of our audit, we identify any deficiencies in your internal control structure that we identify to be either a material weakness or a significant deficiency, we are required under our government auditing standards to report those deficiencies to you. So that report does include a control deficiency that we have classified as a material weakness. And that is related to some audit adjustments in the year-end closing process that occurred. Now, you can read the details of that specific finding in the very next page. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to do that. But it does follow the page that I'm showing you right now. The next report that we provide you in our audit is a report on federal programs. And this is both a compliance opinion as well as a report on the internal controls over compliance. Now, with the federal programs, we are happy to report that you have an unmodified opinion on your compliance, and that means that we didn't have any non-compliance to report in your audit. In addition, on the internal control piece as it relates to your federal programs, we did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that internal control report over federal programs is a clean report. And then we can also see here, where I'm circling towards the bottom of the page, we identify for you those programs that were subject to the audit as we were looking at your federal programs. And this is based on very specific criteria that we have to go through in evaluating the different federal dollars that you receive and spend and which programs are subject to the audit. And then the last but not least, we do provide you a compliance opinion on your state compliance programs that are mandated by the California Department of Education. Very specific programs that we have to audit. Some of those include attendance, instructional time, your LCAP, your duplicated pupil count. There's just a whole list of programs that we are required to audit. And in that specific report, it's unmodified, with the exception of 2 programs that we did identify some compliance findings related to your school accountability report card reporting and your comprehensive school safety plan. And again, similar to the finding I had mentioned on the internal controls on the financial reporting, all of the findings related to the state compliance are in the pages that follow the page that we are currently viewing. And that's the one-page summary of your audit. And as I mentioned, if there are specific pages or questions that you have, comments, we are happy to turn to any page that you'd like or respond to those.
Does the board have any questions of our auditors? I do. Sue?
Hi, this is Sue Burcell. Reading through the audit, I noticed a number of places where there were findings that were recurring from the prior year. And my question was there any evidence that corrections had been made or attempted, but they still weren't satisfactory? Or was it just an instance where we were doing the same thing from 2018 to 2019 and 2019 to 2020, and so it was a repeat finding?
So in 2019, you did have, and remember, we're new this year in 2020. So we do look at what was reported in your 2019 audit, and we do have to audit, follow up in whether or not those findings have been implemented or not. So a lot of the findings in 2019, there was a significant number of findings in 2019. While we did have a couple repeat findings, there were also quite a few of the 2019 findings that did not repeat. And you can see that as you scroll through those pages, which I'll do that really quickly on here so I can show everybody else what you're referring to. I'm scrolling. Okay, so when you start here on this 2019-001, you had audit adjustments and in your 2019 financial statements as well. So and then, as I mentioned, there were findings in 2020 related to audit adjustments as well. So we consider that a repeat finding, although oftentimes the adjustment might be unrelated. But if you have audit adjustments, that was considered a repeat finding. But as you kind of scroll through and start to look at some of these other ones, you will see that there are many that do not have that were implemented. And it gets pretty lengthy. So let me go to the state compliance section. So under your state compliance, starting at 2019-005, if you just kind of keep going through these pages, you will see that there are, I'm trying to get to the end. There's quite a few. So we're at 2019-13, and those were all still state compliance findings. So I do see significant progress from 2019 to 2020, specifically as it relates to those state compliance findings. So I think that's a good step in the right direction. But there were still findings, so probably still room for some additional discussion on ways to maybe prevent those from reoccurring again.
So
I hope that answers your question.
The question was on the ones where you indicated it's a repeat finding. Mm-hmm. Was it simply nothing was done or something was done that didn't cure the problem?
That might be more detail than I can provide an answer to at the moment. Can you provide me a specific reference? And it might be where we'd have to look at that individual finding by finding in order to kind of identify, was there something done? Because there might be different circumstances with each finding. So is there a particular one you would like to discuss?
The one about the cafeteria.
Okay.
Revenue.
So I believe that's the first one. So the 2020-001, and I think we said it was a repeat from the prior year. And then if we looked at the prior year finding, let's see, oops, I apologize. So I think this one was a little bit unique this year. So it was,
you want to take this, Sheila?
Yeah, this one was
Okay.
a little unique. I'm going to ask Kieran to respond because I think he knows the specifics on that. Yeah, thanks, Kieran.
Yeah, no problem. So we work with the county office on this one. So what happened was the county office sends out email to all the districts saying that we can set up your accounts receivable accrual for your cafeteria receivables for last 2 or 3 months that you do not get by June 30th. So you have to set them up as receivables. Mm-hmm. So what happened was the county set them up as a receivable for you. Mm-hmm. And somebody at the district thought that it was a double accrual. So they removed the accrual that was set by the county. So there was no accrual left at year end. So that's why it was a audit adjustment.
So there was
So
a
there
bit of a
was
miscommunication on that
miscommunication.
piece.
Yeah, so it was a completely different circumstance compared to last year, but it was still adjustment with the same cafeteria fund. That's why it's a repeat finding.
So did we end the year with money owed to us that was included in the revenues, or money included in the revenues with no receivable?
The adjustment was positive for you. So it increased the fund balance of your cafeteria fund.
Yeah, it increased your revenues at year end by the adjustment amount, which was $242,000.
And then when that $242,000 came in this year, was it shown as clearing the prior year's accounts receivable, or was it shown as revenue this year?
So what the district will do is they will record the adjustment to their books so that it shows in the prior year and not in the current year. They will make that adjustment on their financial system.
Okay. I'm just thinking this issue could have a 2-year impact.
Well, part of our audit this new fiscal year will be to make sure that they recorded the adjustment so that their ending balance agrees to the audit, and then that way we know they didn't double record that money in the current year. We will look for that.
Any other questions of our auditors?
I had a question on the school safety plans. They're supposed to be approved by March 1st. And I'm thinking, we didn't have any school safety plans.
That's why you have the.
And so now we're working on them right now. And so that doesn't have any fiscal adjustment.
We've approved them by March 1st of this year.
Okay, and then they have to be reapproved next year with
Every year by March 1st,
with changes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're doing the changes.
Any other questions of the auditors?
Oh, I had a question. This doesn't have a fiscal impact either, but schools are required to run their school safety plans through a parent advisory committee that's supposed to have 7 members, and they're all supposed to come from various areas of the community. Some of them are community groups, like it mentioned the senior group. And I'm like, what if you don't have these certain groups in your community? I mean, do they allow for that? Do you have to have a 7-person?
Is that a bond committee you're talking about?
No, it isn't.
You're talking about the school site councils that review these. Yeah, that's a good point. That's an interesting point. From an audit perspective, we don't drill down to that level of detail in auditing the makeup of the committees. I could imagine that there's probably some challenges with that, especially when you're more rural, in a more rural community. I don't know the answer to that with respect to, how you're supposed to respond if you can't get the full committee. What I do know is there is a change in the audit guide language regarding these particular plan approvals. And while, it used to be somewhat ambiguous who was responsible for approving the plans, and everybody focused on, well, it's the school site councils, who I do believe play a part in that. I think CDE has come out and now is putting forth that those actually do need board approval. So from an audit perspective, we are looking at the school board approval. And I do think the school site council plays a role in that, but the approval that we're concerned with is at the board level. So I don't know if I have an answer on how you address, the makeup of the committee, but it's not a component of the audit. But I imagine there's challenge there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of our auditors? Well, I thank you. And I appreciated the thoroughness of your audit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So roll call vote on the acceptance of the audit.
Okay.
Are we still in discussion about the audit?
Well, I asked if there were more questions. You have
You asked
further
if there are
discussion?
questions of the auditors,
Okay,
but I have more questions among us.
okay.
It seems like there are systems not in place that need to be in place so we can avoid repeat findings, like with management of ASB funds, getting the cash deposited, getting it verified, segregation of duties, that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if our business office needs help to develop the appropriate policies and procedures, all that.
Can I speak to that? Because I was an ASB person. One of the biggest problems that we have with the ASB is that every year there's a change in who's the secretary or somebody at the site will be handling the funds, but the people that are out there, having the big sales and stuff, it changes every year. So every year it's a retraining.
Mm-hmm.
And some years are better than others. Some years it's just, there's like about 4 different forms that are, that go with each fundraising. And there's time constraints of when those forms can be signed by principals. And then, for example, at Orleans, there's a time constraint for depositing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live in Orleans and your closest and our accounts are in Hoopa, and you don't get off work till 4:30, and you have to deposit, and then the district doesn't pay you to do that. So I just know that was always a finding that I failed on, because it would take me 2 weeks to get down to Hoopa during the time that the bank was open to deposit funds. So even though I know we don't want negative findings, I think that there are some that are just kind of unavoidable. They're not findings that there's been any misrepresentation of the money, that they're not finding that the money isn't accounted for. They're finding the process, the process hasn't been followed. And I'm not sure, I just noticed in here, one of them was how soon you're supposed to deposit by the next day. And our district office is really good at coming and going over it with the secretaries, and over every form. And
They recommended weekly, and they also recommended a limit on how much cash could be on hand.
Yes.
So that if, prior to the end of a week, you exceeded the amount of cash that should be on hand, there would be an earlier deposit.
Sue, I can respond to some of that. As long as for the past forever,
Yes.
we have always had student body findings. I was really pleased to find that it was only one site this year. And I know that the staff in the business office has gone over, they've gone over with the person responsible at that site, and over and over, and finally Carmi had to put her sharp boots on and go over, and so that is being rectified. But in the past, it's been more than one site. And this year I was pleased to see that it was only one site, because that's a big improvement from before. And hopefully next year we will have 0 audit findings.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of them, not just one. But
Well, for
That's what I
ASB,
recall.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. So she had, when she was talking, this isn't a question for the auditors, it's a question for the board. What she said is that the auditing that is being done on board decisions or board policy, is that correct? This audit is about action that we've taken?
No.
Okay,
She was responding to Carrie's question about the school, which one was it?
That one was the Citizens Oversight Committee
Mhm.
that deals with.
Well, that's what I was asking you. Are you talking
financial-
about the bond? And you said,
financial
no, it was the other
statement
one.
findings.
so
It
my
was about
question,
financial statement findings.
Well, that's why
Is that what is?
I was questioning you when you asked that question,
Okay.
because you said it was another account. I said, is that the bond? Because in our area, when we have a bond, we're supposed to have a bond oversight committee. We don't have the taxpayer and we don't have the senior citizen group.
No.
We don't have those groups that we can draw from in our community. But right now, so anyway, that's
So
what she was saying, that they're looking at the
Okay.
board.
so my concern or my question is, when we were looking at, when she's, with the finding that we had about the school safety plan, is that our principals know when the school safety plans are supposed to be submitted, right? And we have a deadline for that?
Well, actually, they didn't.
This was the
Okay.
first year that Jen got those in by March 1st.
Okay, so
Last,
this is last year's finding?
last year's findings,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so we handled what we were supposed to
Yes,
handle.
and we got it in by
Okay.
the first, yes. Now we're making amendments to it,
Okay, okay,
so.
but this is not on what we just did.
No, this is
Okay.
last.
I just wanted
School year.
clarification for that. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the audit? If not, roll call vote. Okay, accept the audit. So the motion is, can you read the motion? I think the recommendation is to accept the 2019-20 audit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So roll call. Trustee McLaughlin,
Aye.
trustee Brissell,
Aye.
trustee Myers, trustee Wild. Trustee Lara Colgrove.
Yeah.
Trustee Waddy,
Aye.
trustee George.
Aye. The motion carries to accept the 2019-20 audit. Okay, next item 7B, the 1920 audit finding corrective action. The recommendation is to approve corrective actions for the 2019-2020 audit. I'll entertain a motion, then we'll have discussion. A presentation by Carmi.
I make a motion to accept the findings, the audit findings.
Debbie moves to accept the audit corrective actions. Is there a second?
I second that. I second.
Okay, Martha seconds. Okay, Carmi.
Okay, good evening. We had three audit finding corrective actions that needed to be addressed this for the 2019-20 audit. The first was our internal control in regards to our cafeteria and our cafeteria finding. And so what we're going to do in order for us to not to have this finding is we're going to have the individual that's identified as the accounts payable technician. She'll obtain adequate training in our new financial system that we have so that she's able to identify when we're setting up receivables, whether it be ourselves or the county. And so we're going to be working on that this year, and we are going through another financial system. So it's going to be a learned process once again for all of us. We are also, she is monitoring the monthly projections, the counts, and identifying and actually recording the receipt of revenue. So we're going to make sure that we do this correctly and work with the county office as well to make sure that we don't make this mistake again. On our second audit finding, it was a state compliance for the school accountability report card. And so since that has happened, our district superintendent, she establishes weekly meetings that we all attend. And she reports, state timelines for any reporting, anybody that has any type of reports that are coming up that require staff from different sites. That is where we let, the superintendent lets folks know what those timelines are and the information that will be, given that needs to be resubmitted back to us so that we can upload into a SARC report. So with that being said, we're in the middle of completing our SARC now, and we have just a couple more items to do from a couple of our a couple of our sites in order to finish up our SARC. And the third and final was a state compliance issue, and that one was in regards to our safety plan. So we've had safety plans in the when we had the audit finding in 1819. I had gone through to work with our interim superintendent and came up with the procedures to ensure that the plans were reviewed and updated by March 1st. And there are 5 pages to this finding, and it identifies the procedures that we did put in place and that we use and that we send out to the site administrators. And if you go through, we have the comprehensive safety plan overview and compliance guidelines, which identifies, the guidelines that need to be addressed in each of the plans, the development, the timeline and approval, public meeting requirements. And it also talks about school site, who should be involved with this plan. And then, of course, we have a checkoff sheet for the self-monitoring tool. The plan is written and developed by the school site. It goes down into 11 points that they would look at for their safety plan. And that goes out along with our district calendar of, timelines for, at the beginning of the year, we send out a district guideline for the different deadlines. And this has been included in that timeline. So that's my take on it. Kind of outside of what I normally would do, but there it is. There is something completed on our behalf. So, and if you guys have any other questions, I can certainly answer them.
Carrie?
So number 10 on the school safety plan, it says the plan should include verification that the planning committee communicated the school safety plan to the public at a public meeting at the school site. So are those communicated to at site council, or is it a public meeting?
That is the school site council. They utilize their school site council.
For those plans, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my reading of the audit was that the SARC reports are supposed to be made public and explained to the public, and that we haven't been doing that.
They're put up on the
on our
website. Is that
website.
is that what they do?
Yeah. They're on our website.
They are placed on our website.
Where are you reading that, Sue?
Under that item in the report, yeah, I can find it.
And each school has their own
Right now.
safety plan, right? That goes with their.
You know,
I'm
each
talking
school
about
has
the
their own,
SARC,
but they're
the school
Oh, they all have
accountability.
they're compared to each other to make sure you
Yeah.
have the important
They're on
things you
our
have to have.
I'm talking about the school accountability, the SARC.
Right.
Because there are some differences.
Okay.
The SARC, on the SARC, you can't find it, Sue?
Was it a finding?
Yeah, it was.
They were not last year's 1819 was not put on our website because they were not completed. And that's why we had a finding in 1920.
Yeah, because what
'Cause
they
they
said
weren't-
was.
they weren't-
what They said was we didn't do it.
Correct.
Okay,
But they're on there now.
but we're doing it now.
No, they're not on there.
No, they're not on there.
They will be.
Must be 17, 18 that's on there.
17, 18 is
A
on
year
there, but they
behind.
run a year behind.
Right.
Yes.
18, 19 wasn't, so it'll be 19, 20.
18,
So it should be coming up.
18, 19, and 19, 20.
Who's responsible?
So anyway, the corrective action here will take care of us, so we don't have that finding next year, this current year.
Is each school responsible for putting it on there or the district? Why? Who's
What's the
responsible?
process, Carm? Do they send them to you and you upload it?
No. So
School site does it?
the information is sent out from our superintendent's office. And each site has to fill out the information required for the SARC.
Right.
The administrators then email back. We have an actual company that puts together our SARC reports. The site administrator then takes that information, sends it back to the superintendent's office. We then upload from there and to the company. They put it together. If they don't have a few of the pieces in order to complete it as a whole, then the whole process is stale until we get every school site's information that's required in a SARC. And so all the information was not provided to the superintendent's office in order for us to upload to have it complete. And that's, Jen, do you have anything on that? I don't know if I'm explaining this.
No, and
In its
you know,
entirety.
they've been, I think they've just been intermittent. So they are school accountability, it's a school site. And this year, again, the principals have been working on the SARC, but working with that company that does the template has been a little tricky. I know that one of our principals was very proactive in trying to get in touch with her, and there was just, the offices had lapses of being staffed. So it's something that this year we'll have.
We're a little
So
bit,
some of the schools have a couple of years, but the SARC doesn't indicate, it runs a couple of years behind. So we're working on the 1921 right now. So it's just a funny timeline. It's not real time, but it's last year's data.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, roll call vote. The motion is to approve the corrective actions for the 2019-20 audit.
Okay, roll call. Trustee Purcell,
Aye.
trustee Laura Colgrove.
Yeah.
Trustee Wild,
Aye.
trustee Myers,
E.
trustee McLaughlin,
Aye.
trustee George,
Aye.
trustee Waddy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, our next item is the public hearing, ratification of the agreement with Csea Chapter 347. And the public hearing is opened at, who has the time? What's the time? What's your time on
It
it?
is 6:58.
58.
6:58, and is there anyone that wants to just talk during the hearing?
Dana, did we get anybody that asked
We
to,
had no public comment on,
or asked to call
Action
in
item
for the
C.
hearing?
no one.
How long do we have to open the public, keep the public hearing open?
I don't think I think if we had, we would be reading anything or getting any phone comments if anybody had indicated they wanted to speak at the public hearing. So
Okay,
since
so
Dana said none, I think we can close it.
Unless Carmi, did you receive any? No, I didn't either.
okay, then public hearing will be closed at 6, what is that, 59? Okay, we'll go to D, public disclosure and ratification of the collective bargaining agreement. Classified, and we have postponed the confidential portion of that on the agenda. The district has reached a tentative collective bargaining agreement with CBA with the classified employees and a salary restructure. And we're not doing the salary restructure at this time for the confidential employees for the fiscal years 2019, 2020 through 2021, 22. Public disclosure, so Jen?
So we have, I'm gonna, oh, Carmen just left her desk. So we have some revised numbers in terms of the cost of the classified, the contract with Csea. So I just want to also say this was a work in progress for a long time. It started during last school year. The pandemic hit, it was suspended, and then both parties, the district and the Csea, were committed to working through the negotiations through Zoom. That is it's a tough thing to do, but I think the lion's share of the work was done before this current school year, when the idea of restructuring the salary schedule was presented and worked on, because previously there were multiple salary schedules for the classified units. So you couldn't even look on one place on one sheet. It was several sheets of paper, and it was as jobs were added in the district, there were new salaries that were, there were grant funded positions. They were just kind of added on. So I really congratulate both parties for working through this. It was a lot of work and a lot of talking through the details of the job descriptions. I think that both sides were all, this was a unifying experience. It was, we had to talk through some of the differences. One of the things that we were happy about, in addition to having one salary schedule, is starting our minimum wage with, California state minimum wage currently is $14 an hour, and we started at 15. We have some extensions on the steps that include some additional steps where employees are earning before they get to longevity. So what we have in the proposal was that the comprehensive for classified employees that are in the unit and are confidential, who are not part of the negotiated unit. So the board's asked to separate that out. So basically the financial impact was a total cost if both of the salary schedules are approved. I'm wondering, do you have any updated numbers for that, Carmi? Because Angela West said that this would be okay to approve as is, because it's saying to the public, this, we're prepared to spend this much money on this increase.
Okay, so for this year, as you can see, the 2021 cost was $53,851. Since confidential has been taken out, the cost is now $32,437. In year 2, instead of $135,350, it is now $101,994. For year 3, instead of $139,452, the cost now is $103,740.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, questions from the board?
Yes. On page 246, public disclosure form, what is the impact of the agreement on deficit spending in the current or future years? It says reduction in staff and services. Can you explain what that means?
The practice is that if our budgets cannot, if we have reduced budgets and we are not able to meet, then we have to start reduction in staff.
So if we get where we can't afford the salaries in the new schedule, we have to adjust the number of people we're paying those salaries to.
Start reducing positions.
Okay.
Any other questions? No more questions? Let's have roll call vote.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Now, if we put down a motion.
Oh, we didn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I
don't have-
think, yeah, it would have to be an amended recommendation.
I'll entertain a motion to ratify the collective bargaining agreement for the classified.
I make a motion.
Debbie moves.
Yes.
I'll second.
Who was?
Sue
Sue.
seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Weld,
Aye.
trustee Myers,
E.
trustee McLaughlin,
Aye.
trustee George,
Aye.
trustee Waddy,
Aye.
trustee Purcell,
Aye.
trustee Lara Colgrove.
The motion passes 7-0. The board has ratified the collective bargaining agreement with the classified. Okay, item 7E. Review and action on tentative agreement. I guess that's where we were. I did the public disclosure, excuse me.
No, that's right. This is separate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is kind of, this is cleaning house for tentative agreements that were agreed to, but were never ratified by the board. So this is kind of bringing us into the current time, so.
Okay, so E is review and action on tentative agreements, district and CSEA, chapter 347. The district and CSEA entered into 6 tentative agreements as a result of the negotiation process. The recommendation is for the board to approve the tentative agreements related to Articles 2, 6, 7, 9, 12, and 17, XX and Appendix A with all remaining articles of collective bargaining agreement dated July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2020, remaining unchanged and in full force and effect. So basically, these were tentative agreements that were never brought to the board.
Correct. They, a lot of them were signed in March of 2020. And so they just didn't get to the board in, for the rest of the year. So the work got done and then it didn't get to the board yet.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the tentative agreements that the board has entered into with CSEA dated July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Rob moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Martha seconds. Discussion. I would just like to say, I'm thankful we have a full-time superintendent on now that can take care of these issues. So it was not fun having just a half-time superintendent last year. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Trustee Lara Colgrove.
Yeah.
Trustee Purcell.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
E.
Trustee McLaughlin.
Aye.
Trustee George.
Aye.
Trustee Waddy.
Aye.
Trustee Weld.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to action item 7F, approval of hybrid in-person learning MOU with Ktta. This MOU was negotiated between KTTA, KTJUSD to address the impacts of the hybrid learning plan on working conditions for the certificated unit. The recommendation is to approve the hybrid in-person learning MOU between KTTA and KTJUSD. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the hybrid in-person learning MOU with the KTTA.
Debbie moves to approve hybrid in-person learning MOU with KTTA. Is there a second?
I second.
Who second? Martha? Discussion.
Question, does this relate to the KTTA questions that Maggie Peters presented during public comment about
That was on
organization?
I wrote it, it was 7G.
Yeah, okay. Who's the next one?
It's the next one, yes.
All right,
I have a question. Are we still continuing with 6 feet? That's in this.
This MOU, I can answer that, Carrie. You know, we started the language on this quite a while ago. So there may be some things that by other agency standards are outdated. But by the time we, you know, kind of move things along, we are attempting 6 feet. And at that time, the CDPH guidance was no less than 4. You know, it's a good faith effort to do 6 feet. And if it means that, you know, you can't fit a student in a classroom because you have to put 2 kids within 4 or 5 feet, that it's allowable. But it's really after we've exhausted all other options. And as you know, the CDPH and CDC currently have 3 feet, but we haven't adopted that language for our district yet.
Actually, we're being safer, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. But there was some flexibility there because we thought, you know, if you have 11 kids that are going to be in the classroom and the 12th one could, if it was just a matter of the 6 feet, but it is really, you know, it's that operations piece, which is going to be, we're going to have to be vigilant with, but teachers have been able to set up their classrooms and we have some good pictures of the, you know, the 6 feet. So it's students 6 feet, you know, 6 feet between chairs.
Okay, and
was the public concern about keeping kindergartens in the after-school program? Is that part of this or part of the next
It's
item?
part of the next.
It's Amber's report.
yeah. Anything else you want to add, Jen?
No, and then we look at, you know, we're thankful that we were able to work through, you know, we started pretty far apart in terms of, you know, the discussions and got to a place where this is what we've agreed to. And then we expect that KTTA will be ratifying it this week or bring it to their unit membership for ratification. Or propose it to them for a vote. So yeah, no, that's all I have.
Okay. Any other discussion, board? Roll call vote.
Roll call.
Approval of the hybrid in-person learning MOU with KTTA.
Roll call. Trustee Myers,
E.
Trustee McLaughlin,
Aye.
Trustee Waddy,
Aye.
Trustee Lara Colgrove,
Yeah.
Trustee Wild,
Aye.
Trustee Purcell,
Aye.
Trustee George,
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Action item 7G, hybrid and in-person learning plans. These plans continue the progression towards increased in-person instruction for students. The recommendation is to approve moving into phase 5 of the hybrid learning plan on Monday, April 26th, and into the in-person learning plan the Monday after Humboldt County is designated as being in the yellow tier by the California Department of Public Health. And before I ask for a vote, Jen, did you have any updates on that?
I do. So thank you. I have a different recommendation. I mean, it's altered. And again, we started putting this together. Time has elapsed, and at our most recent health and safety meeting, and then in consulting with the principals and, responding to what the staff has brought to them. My new recommendation is to move into phase 5 beginning Monday, May 3rd. So waiting an additional week for to iron out some of the operations. So the new recommendation is to move to phase 5 on May 3rd. And that phase 5, once we are in, a full day for this year would be 4-hour day for our older students, that the high school is able to resume their regular class schedule, rotating classes, and actually going to their teachers. So that's the part about the hybrid learning. The other discussion that I had with our, MTO director or school nurse, they're both on the call if you have questions for them, is for the board to approve the in-person learning plan as a plan, and then allow the implementation date to be decided by staff. So that would be the health and safety team consulting with school administration, and school administration working with their staff. So removing that language about the yellow tier.
Okay, so we're being asked to what is the recommendation on that?
I have it written.
Okay.
Should I? So this would be my revision. The recommendation is to approve moving into 5 phase of the hybrid learning plan on Monday, May 3rd.
And also to allow implementation time to be decided by staff.
So then and then in the in-person learning plan I recommend that the board approve the in-person learning plan and give the authority to staff to decide the implementation date.
And by staff, you're meaning the health and safety and administrators.
Yes. Delegating that to me, and I always, work in consult. So I think that would be recommendation to approve the in-person learning plan, allow the implementation date to be determined by the health and safety team.
So I'm wondering.
I'll entertain a motion for that.
Okay. Oh, we haven't discussed.
Laura Lee, I have another question. This may come out of discussion, but what was unclear when we were putting the plan together was if the high school was going to be switching classes or going to their homeroom. So originally, I don't know if that's part of the recommendation or if we can put that in as once the discussion happens at switching the high schools, the model. Can that just be in the discussion?
Well, then how do we make a motion?
So okay. So so that would be an amendment to our motion?
Or that's,
or
I guess, what I'm asking.
A separate motion.
I'm asking if it's an amendment to the motion or if it's actually through the discussion of the plan we will adapt, amend the plan itself.
Okay, so.
I don't know logistically how to.
Okay, we'll leave that part to rest for discussion.
Okay.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the progression into increased in-person instruction for students, approve moving into phase 5 of the hybrid learning plan on Monday, May 3rd, and into the in-person learning plan when the health and safety team deem it safe.
Yes.
Rob moves. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Debbie seconds. Discussion.
I have the public comment if you'd like to hear.
Oh, yes. Public comment.
That was Maggie.
And were there 2 of them?
No, it was just the one for this one. Okay, to the honorable trustees, on behalf of the KTTA members, I am writing to communicate concerns voiced at the general meeting held on April 19th, 2021. Here is a list of concerns in response to implementation of in-person learning as described in the proposal. insufficient time to simultaneously teach in-person class with virtual class, and developing distant learning packets. Students attending in-person class virtually will not have the attention they require to participate equally. Teacher attention will be focused on students in my classroom, and those on the Meet/Zoom will not be given the attention they need. Please provide full-time distant learning teachers to address the needs virtually. Many students attending virtually do not have an adult assisting them or monitoring the behaviors of students online, which may be different compared to schools on the coast that have success with virtual instructional models. Please provide full-time distant learning teachers to address the needs virtually. In-person instruction will also require different instruction materials than distant learning students, and I do not have sufficient time to create both curriculums. With the proposed length of the in-person school day, many members have concerns about coverage for a scheduled release time for unit member break. Expecting staff to work 4 or more hours without a break is unreasonable. Many have concerns about the lack of fidelity to distancing and preparation for food services and access to outside equipment. Less than a week notice for transition to longer days is insufficient for the planning that needs to take place with communication to families, preparation for staff to resolve current concerns, and plan for perhaps more issues with a longer day. Example, food service. Beginning May 3rd, would coordinate with current distant learning packet materials distribution, as well as give families the opportunity to reconsider in-person learning if the length of on-campus instruction is changing, educational agreement, distribution, and collection. Thank you for working to address these concerns. Respectfully, Maggie Peters.
So are those concerns already addressed because we changed the April 26th date to May 3rd?
Looks like some of them
I
are.
think that's just one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Khadijah,
So I've read through this phase 5 a couple of different times, and I am not clear on what it is. So can you take a few minutes and explain to me what phase 5 is?
so phase 5 is basically the blueprint that we have right now, where a teacher's class is divided into 2 groups, the A group and the B group. Monday and Tuesdays for our, the first group. Wednesday is a purely distance learning day, and then Thursday and Friday is for the B group. And currently, students are attending school in person for 1 hour and 55 minutes. So the change with phase 5 would increase the time that students are on campus for in-person instruction. So the whole structure is the same, but the school day is lengthened.
Okay.
And so yes, so it's really a time. In terms of a health and safety, it's screenings and distancing, it doesn't impact that part. Although there are other things that were brought up that it does impact, but it's really just, it's a lengthening of the day.
Okay. Martha?
So I was trying to, we had that letter from Amber about, I'm trying to wrap my head around what is actually happening with the TKK students. So they're released for the other students?
I can address that. So currently they have the same length of day because the current time for in-person instruction is only half of what's required for all of our grades, except for kindergarten. They're 1 hour under, and our other grades are 2 hours under what is considered to be a full school day. So this would, if we, because of busing, it's not like we can say, okay, we're going to end kindergarten and have a separate kindergarten bus run. So we wanted to give sites flexibility so that the teachers, last year, kindergartners have a length of school day that is well in excess of what's required. So we could ask, there could be schools that say we're going to keep kindergartners for the full day and we'll release them. They also would have the option of releasing their students to be picked up by families. And then the third option was to send just those students to the after school program. So that proposal only came to you as an option after I checked with Tavuchi. There was no way I was going to, offer that. So she oversees all of the after school programs, and she agreed that that was something that ACES can in fact support the kindergartners, and if a school site decides that that's what their needs are. She was on the call on our meeting earlier. I don't see her on here, but she affirmed that that is something that ACES can do.
So what I got from Amber is that she has two different positions.
Mhm.
And so she would be conflicted, is trying to do ACES and her other job at the same time.
Yeah, and I did actually talk to Tavuchi about that. And, you know, I don't know that Amber has been specifically assigned. I think because the number of students is really small, they might, you know, they're not taking the whole after-school program. It's just one grade. So I don't know the specifics of any particular employee. I did ask one of the principals about, you know, if they felt like the ACES was something. I mean, I talked to Jacqueline, I had asked you about the ACES program, right? I'm trying to remember who I talked to. I mean, it's different at Hoopa L than at Trinity Valley, of course, but I wanted to let the school sites have some options. And if the ACES program is not the best one, then they can, you know, have a requirement that parents pick up kids. I feel like that really is a narrow option, or the students can stay with the teachers. But I felt like to only offer the option that the students are in their kindergarten classrooms for 4 hours was not something that, you know, they have a menu of options now for whatever works best at the school site. Sounds like that particular employee can't do ACES, but there are other staff at the school.
They must be getting recess, right? In that 4 hours, they have to be getting a recess. And then,
Yeah,
so you're
that wouldn't
saying,
be a break. I wouldn't count on that. Yes, kids can.
'cause that's usually when the
schedule.
teacher takes
That's
a break.
That's a schedule, but, and I don't know if Debbie, if you're asking about, you know, I wouldn't rely on that as a time that the teachers are getting any breaks.
Do our kindergarten teachers, is there something in our negotiation that says they don't work as long as the other teachers?
No, they have the same school. They have the same.
So if they're on campus
Contracted
and they're
hours.
supposed to have a class, shouldn't we just keep the kindergartners with their teacher?
I think that's an option. I think that, you know, I think that for schools that can support ACES, we should allow that to be. So I think that the way it's written in the plan is that the sites are going to address that.
Some of
Jacqueline,
our
are you-
schools, we don't all have ACES. We don't have ACES at Jackie Martin.
Right. So it's pretty broad in terms of what's proposed here, because we can't be prescriptive because each site has different staffing and.
Okay,
And
so
that's why it says maybe, that's what it says.
No,
They
okay.
may retain, may with the classroom teacher, they may be dismissed. So, yeah, they have a
yeah,
choice.
they have options. It's
And parents
written,
can pick them up if they don't want them in class for 4 hours.
it's written in the phase 5 hybrid. Okay,
Oh, I didn't understand that, though.
so so then the in-person learning that changes from, well, excuse me, any more questions on phase 5?
This is where I had my addition. The very last bullet says the high schools may have modified schedules based on transportation. By delaying this, you know, a week for everyone, we think we have worked that transportation out. That was one of the things, was, you know, working on the operations. So what changes from the previous phases where we described the learning centers for the high school where they were in, you know, they were just in their homerooms. We want for the high school to be able to go back to a regular bell schedule with students switching classes. And one of the things that we did way early on to reduce the risk was we went from a 7-period day to a, you know, 3 periods plus a homeroom, a 4-period day. So there's much less switching than in a regular year. So I would ask that, and as an addition.
Is that under phase 5 or is that the next in person?
We'd like to see it in phase 5 so the students can do it, because in phase 5, they will have smaller class sizes. So it would be much better to test it out then rather than when everyone is back. So for phase 5, adding in the high school will switch classes.
So is the high school still the 4 hours, 2 days a week?
In
That's part of my
the,
confusion.
in the proposal or currently?
In the
In-
proposal.
In phase 5.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
part of
it
my
would be
confusion.
2, it would be 4 hours for, yes, for 2
You're the
days.
same.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and then
that's-
Wednesday would be distance learning for everyone, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so then are we ready to discuss the in-person, the next step? In-person learning plan, the next page. And the difference there is, tell us, Jen.
This is pretty much once we have moved out of, a notable risk of COVID transmission in our community and our county. And again, I put it with yellow tier, and I'm asking to remove that language and for the health and safety team to be able to look at the data and our school preparedness and the, operations and making sure that they're all ready to have students back on campus 5 days a week. I don't think anything is going to be 100% across the board. If they're exceptionally large, if there are large class sizes, we're going to have to split them in half and have them do that A-B schedule. So it's going to take some work, especially on the high school's part where they switch, where they have students. So it at least allows for the schools that can have their kids back every day to come back every day. And I have Angie and Missy and some of the principals are on if you have any, questions about that.
Well, addressing some of the concerns that were raised, I would like to know more about the insufficient time to teach class, do distance learning and the distance learning packets. Once we go back to in-person learning, when it's a 5 day a week, how maybe someone can explain options on that.
So I saw one teacher in the school at Jack Norton. He's the kids that are in class, he's teaching them there, and then they get their work, and then later on that afternoon, he's doing the distance learning with the kids, on distance learning. I don't know if that's what answers that or not, but that's what I saw him doing.
Okay, so are there other?
So, Lorley, can I speak up on this a little bit?
Sure.
So, I have a couple of teachers that are doing their distance learning, like turning their Google Meets on while they have students in class. It's definitely a lot of extra pressure for them, I think. But there are a few of them that are saying this is turning out to be pretty successful. I think what they're doing is they're kind of overlapping them. So they have some time, that first hour with just their kids in the classroom where they might be working on a hands-on project. And then that second hour with their students at home. And now not all of my teachers are doing this, but this is how some of them have designed it. And it seems like it's working out, where they're working with kids at home and in class. One thing that we found that would really help is if we had cameras on our big ProWise screens, like what you're looking at right now, that screen in their classroom. And so we're putting in orders for that right now. I wish we would have done that a long time ago, but it just kind of oh, we should be doing this because they're using their little laptop and have their class on that. And so that's one request that they had. So we're working on orders for that. I think all of the schools are, so that would really help. But it is definitely challenging. I don't think it's easy at all. I mean, you're teaching to kids on a screen and in the classroom and kind of juggling it, but I do think it's doable. So.
And then, go ahead.
I would just agree with Jacqueline. It is challenging, but I've also witnessed teachers where they're recording as they're teaching. And then you have your actual students, you'll have your actual students in the classroom, you'll have your virtual students in the classroom, but it is a challenge. I'm not gonna say that it's not, but there are teachers that are currently recording as they go so that the asynchronous learning can occur. And also having time built into our schedule for the passing period to address teachers if they need to run to the restroom real quick. But also we're going to be working on providing breaks through staff, time before the kids arrive, a little bit of time after the kids arrive, and then also having distance learning only on Wednesday. So at the high school, really trying to alleviate and support our teachers by giving them the maximum amount of time we can within a school day, geared around when those kids are on campus. But it is going to be a challenge, but I do see teachers that are doing it as we go now.
Okay, anyone else? We have,
I'd like to go ahead and add one of the things that was pointed out at the public comment for Ms. Peters. This is Scotty Appleford. I'm sorry, I'm not on camera. It was identified that we're going to be experiencing some bottlenecking and some challenges is with the packets being still the main vehicle of instruction. You know, the teachers are still creating packets and using some of the majority of the teachers are using those packets within the classroom, and then they are going home as we get for the students that are doing distance learning, that is. And as we get kind of closer to a traditional model, the hope is to be able to move away from that packet as the vehicle for instruction or you know, the student work, so that teachers can teach in a more traditional method. The problem being that the students that are still remaining in distance learning would still need some sort of packet, so that would then kind of create an extra it would create an extra duty for the teachers to create packets and also create hands-on activities and things that are best facilitated within the classroom. So, and just to address one other thing that was in the public comment is that we are experiencing due to the size of Hoopa L, when it comes to the ingress and egress of students, we are cramped for space because we have now in the cohort model, we have, you know, half the kids at a time. And when we come out to stage for getting on the buses and parent pickup, we do have some limited space, and it's difficult logistically to keep 6 feet apart without being spread over the front third of the campus. So we'll be meeting with Missy and on Thursday to try and figure out a better model. I spoke with the vice principal today to look at it because it does kind of get a little chaotic. It lasts about 20 minutes, but anyhow. So thank you.
I have a question. One of the things that takes a lot of time for the teachers is standing at the copy machine, copying everything for those packets. Is there a plan to help them out some way with that?
I'll speak to that as well. We initially had our LPs and one-on-one staff who I'd like to add have been working in multifaceted and doing a little bit of everything for us. So I'd like to commend them on that. But we initially had LPs assigned to a group of between 5 and 6 teachers to help alleviate that copying that you're speaking of. But now that we've moved further down the phases, it's becoming increasingly difficult for them to be able to work in the classrooms one-on-one and to make those copies. And that does take some time.
Jen, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. It's kind of a question. Well, I have a couple things. I agree that those concerns are, yeah, we're concerned. There's it's a tremendous amount of work, and it's the whole idea of starting something new. I'm just wondering if any of the support staff's time will be freed up because as we move through, because we're really still just starting with in-person. I mean, we've only done it for a couple of weeks where we've been rolling buses. So I don't know, Scotty, you don't have to necessarily answer this unless you have, a clear idea of, do you think that you will find that with the early morning staffing that you're going to be able to free up some of your staff as we get in the practice of this? Because I feel like we're still just learning, and it's taking a lot of people's time. So I don't know if that's an option.
That's a valid question, Jen, and it really isn't a matter of freeing them up. Their duties will shift slightly as we're looking at, facilitating breakfast and or lunches, which we'll be talking to Becky about that on Thursday, as well as the transportation piece. So the duties will shift. And my one-on-one staff can tell you, I've probably given them 15 to 20 different schedules as we're fine tuning it. So freeing them up isn't the term I'd use. It would just be reallocated.
Reassigning for these concerns. Another issue that came to my attention through a principal was a frustration from teachers, or at least a teacher with the constant change. And I feel like we have asked a lot of all of our staff this year. And but I also feel like that change is something that we are obligated to follow, because we've had so many things in place as safety measures that have really there have been a lot of barriers to students being in school, and we have so many more assurances of our for our safety, including I don't know, Angie, how many, we have 70,000 masks. I mean, we have the equipment now. So I feel that as much as it's frustrating for there to be a constant change, that is our responsibility to respond as the safety conditions change. Then we have that responsibility, because it's our job to provide education to students. In terms of the multiple roles that teachers have teachers have had that forever. They have always stood at copy machines. They've always had to make phone calls to students who are homesick. And it's just increased the burden this year. I'm thankful that the state reduced the number of instructional minutes, because previous years, kids were in school for 6 hours, and now they're in school. We're required to have them in school or have their instructional minutes to be for 4 hours. It does not solve all the problems, but there's a little bit of a release there, rather than the state saying you have to provide full-time instruction, the regular 68,000 minutes for high school. So yeah, it's definitely not perfect. And I think it'll get easier once it's kind of, we're at that hard spot of starting and then doing corrections and working smarter, not harder kind of thing.
One of the concerns I have, and I'm hearing nationwide, that our teachers are getting close to burnout. And so this sufficient time to teach a class, virtual distance learning, and the distance learning packets. I understand a lot of that time is at the copy machine, copying those packets. I'm wondering, with some of the COVID money that has come down, if there is any way we can get someone just to do copying for them. I mean, that would free up some of the burden. I would like to have our administrators keep an eye on that, and if need be, let's see what we can do. I don't want any of our teachers to totally burn out.
Yeah. One of the things that we have for discussion is how, we need to make some decisions about how to use some of that funding. So I feel like that would fall within, some clerical support for instruction would fall within what's allowable, because that's going to be, supporting students.
I do want to mention that at my site, I mean, I can't speak for the whole district, of course, but I have assigned some of my support staff to help my teachers with copying and putting together packets and that kind of thing. And a lot of my teachers just took that responsibility back, because teachers like to do things a certain way, most teachers, and they have their way that they do things. And so even though for some of them, they've even said, yeah, that's really nice and helpful. I have hardly any of them actually utilizing another person at my site, and there is that option for them. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. I don't think all teachers may not feel like that. Maybe some of them would gladly pass it off to somebody to make those copies, but at my site, that has not been the case.
Thank you.
Lori Lee, this is may I speak for a moment?
Oh, hi, Angie.
Hi.
Yes.
I really appreciate your comment about we don't want our teachers to get burnt out. And I know that it has been a really rough year this year, the end of last year for our teachers. And I even saw some sort of comment that one of the teachers put on Facebook that, she had her Apple Watch and her Apple phone, and she had her computer on a cart, and, she was trying to deal with students and make copies. And it was a pretty funny comment that she made, but reality for our teachers. So I really do think it is challenging to ask them to do 4 hours of instruction, as well as do the packets, and then also do some sort of contact with students in person. So I really think that we need to support our teachers through this and give them any help that we possibly can. The other piece that I'm hearing from the teachers is that they have concerns about putting their class live up on a large screen in their classroom and having the kids interact, because we are entering into the privacy of people's homes. And so we're really in those individuals' home environments for 4 hours. And sometimes, things happen in our home environments that maybe you don't want spread to, 20 other children or 10.
There's some pretty horrid stories. Yeah, she's right.
Hadn't thought about. Some of our teachers have said they have seen things on those Zoom.
Right. That's what I heard too.
So we have to be very careful with that. So just saying the teachers can pop up their screens and teach and have the rest of their class interact isn't always something that can happen with all groups, because there are those things that do happen in individuals' homes that are appropriate. So I just wanted to say
the visual on their end. So that they
Yeah,
can see what's going on in the classroom without the classroom seeing what's going on where they are.
That's how most.
You could position your screen where the kids can't actually see it. I mean, you could figure out ways to do it, but I could see how that would be an issue.
I mean, the classroom, I'm just saying, the classroom doesn't have to have access to the home.
That's
They
how
can turn-
most
they can
The
turn
pos-
the
are
camera
operating.
off there.
Yeah.
Well,
That possibility, certainly, that, but there is one problem with that possibility, is that if the teachers, wanting to have accountability to count attendance, if the student's camera isn't on, there's no real way of telling if that student is sitting in front of and watching and participating in the class. It can get a little wonky.
I agree. And the other things that I wanted to say is that, we need to make sure we're following the protocols with fidelity. We have had other schools that have had to shut down programs and different sporting events because they've had positive cases. And, I proudly say of our staff and our students, we haven't had any positive cases, on campus. And so I applaud our staff for doing the protocols with fidelity. And it's been difficult doing that as well, but they're following through with that. So we just need to continue doing that. And then, I am in favor of the 6 foot distancing. I want to make sure that we make a good faith effort to keep that 6 foot, even though now CDPH is stating that we can go to 3 feet. We have been extra cautious since we began the year, more cautious than other schools on the coast. And I want to keep that caution with our students and our staff. So keeping that restriction of 6 feet when at all possible. I understand if we need to fit one more child into a classroom, trying to accommodate that, but I don't want to have the teachers faced with having 10 more students placed into a classroom because we want to move to a single cohort instead of multiple cohorts. So I just want to make sure that we're protecting our staff and students to the fullest. And then also supporting our teachers and our support staff, because they have been working really hard and they've been doing great things with our students and really being flexible and creating great programs through Zoom to teach our students, and to have to do that and keep our distance learning packets and distance learning at the level that we want it to be, as well as teaching the students in the classroom and having that at a level that our students deserve, is going to be very, very challenging for our teachers.
Why don't we just ask our teachers whether support staff could be useful to them and what other kind of help they need?
I think I think our administrators know their school sites best. And so that might be something.
Well, that's what I mean, not us.
Yeah.
Why don't we have,
Well,
just solicit ideas from the teachers themselves?
Yeah, I I assume that the administrators do interact with their teachers and see, but I just wanted it out there that we, at least I am in favor of finding support staff if needed, since we have the funding coming down. So whatever help our teachers may need, that we are receptive to helping them with that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good
Yeah.
idea.
Noted.
And an idea might be to ask like classified staff that are only 3 hours a day, if they'd like to do an extra 2 hours to support the teachers. Just an idea.
There's not an app, you can just send your stuff to be printed somewhere?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I was saying that when I was being teacher's aide, the biggest thing I did was when those packets come back in, as they start coming back in and keeping every kid's organized and then start grading those and keeping them all together. And that was a big help for the teacher to have all those papers graded, and then she just has to, you know, put the grades on there. So that was a big thing, but she did all the putting together, but the staff, yeah,
Oh, yeah, you send the work out, you gotta.
yeah, then when it comes back, it's like a
Go back
stack.
out, Okay. Any other discussion on this? Anything else, Jen, from your end or administrators?
The only other thing, I have the motion about moving into phase 5. I feel like it's important to consider once the high school is back to 4 hours, if the full day includes students changing classes. Because the way it was written was like they go to class and they're with one teacher for the 4 hours. So, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to wait is so that schools can prepare and make sure their class sizes are appropriate. Because as you know, Angie wrote the language in the hybrid learning plan and the full that we're going to look at the class sizes. That's, you know, the board is allowing for us to go, you know, for the longer days or for 5 days a week, but we still want to make sure that we have this part where if they don't meet the criteria, then we can't allow that class size. So, so I wanted it to be explicit that included with phase 5 and in person, that the high school the students are able to go to their classroom teachers for each of their they'll have a regular period schedule. So that would be in the plan itself. I can amend the plan and put that, add that in.
Shouldn't that be left up to the health and safety?
I can't, I read lips and I can't hear you.
Shouldn't that be left up to the health and safety people? Because that's more of a health issue, right? So I don't want to make a determination on.
That would be,
healthy.
I think the health and safety and, you know, Craig Cornelson would be happy to have that. And that way he can really, you know, if he needs to wait because he, you know, needs to build some more supports in. We would welcome that because, you know, we are looking at the numbers and the on the ground.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Could you, Dana, could you read the motion back and then call roll call vote?
Okay, on the motion, Jen, can you read it back? Because you separated them and I got them all together.
Okay, so I don't know if we want it as one motion. Okay, in its entirety is to recommend moving into phase 5 on May 3rd, moving into the in-person learning plan at the discretion of the health and safety team.
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Waddy.
Aye.
Trustee Lar Colgrove.
Yes.
Trustee Wald.
Aye.
Trustee George.
Aye.
Trustee Purcell.
Aye.
Trustee McLaughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, is there an expectation that phase 5 that starts May 3rd is gonna last for at least a week or a couple of weeks before the discretion is exercised to move into the in-person learning plan? Or, I mean, because the way this reads, we could be on Monday, May 3rd, in phase 5 and the next day decide to.
I think we have to assume that our administrators have looked at that.
Was that Sue who asked about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's one of the reasons why, staff came back and said, look, we need more time. Let's move into phase 5 later. And that came first to me from the high school staff. And so, yeah, I agree that that's something that, we're working with, the health and safety, the administration, teachers to move at a pace that is not, lightning fast. So that was another thing that Angie had brought up. She said, well, what if we move into the yellow tier today? Are we moving into this right away? But we'll plan on having it staged. And we will need that, phased reopening. It's one of the strong recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item 7H, we're pulled from the agenda. We will not deal with it tonight. We'll move on to 7I, Indian Land Tenure Curriculum Adoption. The recommendation is to approve the adoption of the K-12 Indian Land Tenure Curriculum. I will entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the Indian Land Tenure Curriculum.
Sue moves. Is there a second?
I second.
You seconded it, Carrie. Carrie second. Discussion.
What does this mean? I'm not familiar.
Margot is on the call, everyone.
Oh, okay. Margot.
Hi, Margot.
I don't know if you can see her.
Yeah.
Hello.
There she is.
So you had a question?
Yeah. Oh, did you hear me, Margot? I was just wanting to know, what does this mean? The land tenure.
Just give us an overview.
So the Indian Land Tenure Curriculum is kindergarten through 12th grade curriculum based on the history and culture of the local tribes. There are over 160 lessons. They are aligned to English language arts Common Core standards. Every teacher has a teacher's guide to implement it, and every student receives a workbook. And it is currently being used in our district, not by 100% of our teachers. But it would, I feel like it's important for the school board to formally adopt it. In the past, it was approved by the Board of Trustees, and this is one step further in ensuring that all teachers use it in their classrooms.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because, a lot of the, when I was teaching in Indian Land Tenure program was going on, and not all teachers were using it in their classrooms. And I think it's really important for us as a board to support this and support that all teachers should be using this in their classroom.
Well, there's so much good curriculum, and then it incorporates everything. They have their different spelling stuff, and there's games that they can play, and just so much stuff. So it's really great.
Yeah. Now, also with the State Board of Education approving ethnic studies, now does this fit into that requirement? I would think so.
It could very well fit into that requirement. I'm not sure how that process works in terms of if we submit it to them, do they purchase the use of it from us, or how that works? Because we are currently not only using it in our district, but other districts are ordering it as well. So it is a source of money to provide additional services to our students.
And maybe you can check on that and see what they're recommending from the state.
And what grade levels the state is recommending
Okay.
ethnic studies to go through?
Because I not want to miss that opportunity there for the new ethnic studies. And I understood that there was a lot of leeway at the LEA site to do a lot of that, but I don't know all the details. So, okay.
I just, this is Jen.
Right.
I just
So I'm
wanted to
currently
reiterate.
collaborating.
I'll wait, Margot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm currently collaborating with the Yurok tribe on some development of the ethnic studies curriculum, and they had asked about this. So I will check into the details of that. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to echo what Margot said about the value that the curriculum is for other school districts in the county. When I was superintendent at Big Lagoon, we purchased the curriculum for several years. It was really a wonderful thing to be able to provide to our students. It was completely relatable. So I just want to, that's another angle that I'm glad you mentioned, Margot, because it was generated and created in this district, and it's a real amazing resource for especially our smaller school districts that might not have the ability to create a curriculum as rich as this one is. So thank you.
Okay.
So I have a question. So if we adopt this, can we be assured that it will be being taught in all classrooms?
That's it.
It should be. It has all the different levels from kindergarten, the ones I've seen. all
But
the way up
I
to-
know that the binders are handed out and not always used.
Mhm.
So,
I would maybe like a report back.
yeah, is there some way to measure whether it's being used?
Or do we need to make a board directive policy that it is?
If we adopted it, part of the standard.
It's part of the curriculum.
That's not on the agenda tonight, but it's a good idea. We could add it to another.
And attach some reporting requirements to it, so, you know.
So we know it's
We
actually.
get reports from the schools on who's using it in what grades, what lessons,
Yeah.
you know, they've used.
So if it's on the agenda to be adopted.
Well, that's what my
Right.
question is.
Can't we
If we
just
adopt
add-
it, is that like saying,
Yeah,
we want this taught?
I can't read your lips, sorry.
So if it's on the agenda to be adopted, can't we just adopt it with the requirement that there are some tracking, that the superintendent tracks it?
Or with the requirement that
That
it's,
it's used while it's in the classroom?
yes, we make a board policy that it will be utilized in
Well,
every.
policy is a little bit different than
And they're
a motion here tonight.
Yeah.
So if we adopt it with the directive that it be used in the classroom? Can we do that?
We'd still have to make a policy to
We can
enforce it.
strongly encourage.
So let's not do that. I think it's good to do it separately and make it a policy.
Sure.
Yeah, if it's policy, then it goes into our board policies.
But don't if we adopt curriculum, if we're adopting curriculum for the first grade, don't they have to use that curriculum?
Not
No.
necessarily,
No, I've seen teachers not do it.
right?
Basically,
I have
adopting
seen- I
it
have
means
seen
it's
books-
approved for use, but
Okay.
not necessarily required.
Right, and if teachers can't, you know, because a lot of them have language too, whatever the language is, it'll have words in English and words in the language, and if they can't read it, they're just like, oh, I don't know what that says, I can't say that word, and they'll just dismiss it.
Yeah.
But they should have to.
So Jen,
Try
what does
harder.
adopting mean?
This is something, it's kind of it's new ground because we adopt curriculum that we are required by the State Board of Education to adopt. So this would not replace anything. It would be additional to, so adopting is, you know, when we have the adopted curriculum, that's what the district purchases, and that's what we distribute for teachers to use, whether, you know, so we have a really old English language arts curriculum. Lots of people don't like it and they want updates, but that is the district's adopted curriculum. So that's what's used for English language arts In terms of the requirement, I mean, I would interpret an adoption is that is inherent with an expectation to be teaching this curriculum. I wouldn't have thought of doing a separate mandate. I would have thought if we're adopting the curriculum, but I do think it is a good idea to come back and say, you know, we want to have a resolution, or when we do our resolution for the sufficiency of instructional materials, adding it there, that these are, you know, and that identifies the instructional materials that are used. So Margot, do you want to address anything about the expectation? I mean, I think that Margot's bringing this to the board because it just formalizes it. We own this, and this is part of our district.
The lesson plans in the curriculum identify the English language arts standards that they meet. You know, it has right on the lesson plans, this meets California, you know, state requirements for, you know, the following ELA standards.
But I was looking at some sort of incentive for teachers to use it, like maybe put on our website.
But if we're
it.
using an English language arts curriculum that is old and funky and people aren't really crazy about it, they might be ready to do something.
But this is a supplement in terms of the EL. I think it's amazing that the team that wrote it identified and correlated it with the standards, but it's not standards aligned. It would not be a standalone English language arts curriculum, but it's really good that they did that standards alignment. So they correlated it, but it's not, so it's correlated to the standards. It's not aligned and not comprehensive with the English language arts standards.
Okay. Margot?
I think it's a really good idea to follow this up with the policy stating that all teachers will implement it. And Jennifer is right, it is not comprehensive enough to replace a regular English language arts textbook, but it can certainly replace different lessons in there. So it's meant to be taught during language arts time so that teachers don't have to feel guilty about not teaching to the standards.
Okay, any other questions? The motion is to approve the adoption of the K-12 Indian Land Tenure Curriculum. Roll call vote.
Roll call. Trustee McLaughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Wild.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
E.
Trustee Lara Colgrove.
Yeah.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Trustee Waddy.
Aye.
Trustee Brissell.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we move into discussion item, expanded learning opportunity grant. Jen.
So this is another offer from the state in terms of some funding to support services for our students that we need additional services because of this, you know, more than a year-long pandemic response and school closure. So I'm going to just read the part on the information piece, which is the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant created by AB 86 makes funds available to LEAs in order to support learning recovery programs. The attached document describes the category of services that may be funded through the grant. Statute requires that the ELO grant plan be adopted by the board no later than June 1st, 2021. So in Sacramento, they're moving lightning fast. They just released the money and released the template and gave us a time where we need to provide a plan and bring it to the board on June, by June 1st. So we're not ready to present a plan as a draft. We need I would like some feedback from the board and have a discussion about some ideas of how you can give me some direction about uses of that specific grant. And so in your packet on the second page, it talks about the 7 supplemental instruction and support strategies, which are to extend instructional learning time, accelerate progress to close learning gaps through the implementation expansion or enhancement of learning supports. 3, integrated student supports to address other barriers to learning. 4, community learning hubs that provide students with access to technology, high-speed internet, and other academic supports. 5, supports for credit deficient students to complete graduation or grade promotion requirements and to increase or improve students' college eligibility. 6, additional academic services for students. And 7, training for school staff on strategies, including trauma-informed practices to engage students and families in addressing students' social, emotional health needs and academic needs. So there are, and any of the actions that are funded through this particular plan need to meet one of those 7 criteria. So I just wanted to open it up to the board for some ideas. So as we start to craft the plan, we have some direction. We will get input from our managers, from our school administrators, from our staff across the district, and from the community. So what the expectation is, we'll hold at least one community meeting and asking for input. So it's kind of like a mini LCAP or a mini learning continuity plan, but it's a very, it's really a fast time. Carmi has something to add.
So 10% of the $845,811, 10% has to be for the paraprofessionals, and that's 84,581. And paraprofessionals, it's very specific to identifying our literacy paraprofessionals. They work with students directly. It's clearly defined. I don't have that writing in front of me right now. However, our literacy paraprofessionals we have to show exactly what they are doing specific to ed code, and I don't have the ed code in front of me that defines the literacy paraprofessional. So just so you're aware, 10% of that is for paraprofessionals.
One of the things that is listed here is summer school, which when are we going to hear what is in the works or planning for summer school?
We're at the very beginnings. We have the interest survey from staff, and then I'm going to ask for Craig Kimball to coordinate that. We offer ESY, so we're just going to coordinate it with the ESY program and open it up. That would be my intention, and to open it up to all students that are interested in the, it not be restricted to students who have the extended school year in their IEPs. So we're at the beginnings of that. Our contractual obligation with the teachers is to ask them by May 15th if they are I think that's the date, May 15th, to ask if they are interested in teaching summer school. So we already sent that interest survey out just so we, can have some idea. So we may have to ask people, if we wanted to offer it at every site. I mean, we'll have some logistical limitations, but usually ESY is at one site, and we know we need to be able to offer it, an extended school year or an expanded school year at multiple sites this coming summer. So 20 days is what we would be looking at.
Now, in our reports, our assistant superintendent for business did put in a chart on COVID budgets. So I am interested in seeing how some of this has been used, what's left over, what are the plans, what at some point, because that came to $5,389,000 plus this AB 86. So I would like to wrap my head around of what are we doing with this?
Yes, yeah. And the money has been coming in various pots, and each pot of money has a list of allowable expenses. This one came with a plan that we have to do. The other ones come with, getting direction from the board in terms of, how you're looking at spending some of the money, but this is the one that was kind of the fast track, this specific one for, basically increasing student services. Is that accurate, Carmi? This is the one that we have the plan. That's kind of our hot deadline for this one. And the other funding, the ESSER funding, which is really a lot of money to support health and safety and increase student services, there's definitely requirements, but I don't know that they have put anything where we have to write a board approved, write a plan and get it to the board. I think this is the only pot of money that's left that has that. It looks very much like the LCAP, just the style of it, but we want to talk about, those different categories. And at the time that I went to the superintendent's meeting, Carmi, they didn't have a time for, does this have an expenditure deadline now? Have they given us a time? Okay, because that was another troubling thing to try to figure out how to develop a plan when you don't know if it's a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year plan.
It was, so the Extended Learning Opportunities Grant is through August 31st, 2022.
Okay, so 2 year plan. Thank you.
And that is a state fund.
Okay.
I have a question. So can we incentivize? I'm thinking about how exhausted teachers will be at the end of this year. And then we're saying, hey, would you like to teach summer school? Is there a way to incentivize that with either some kind of extra duty pay or does it increase their service credit, add to their retirement? What other incentives are there that we can dangle as carrots in front of their noses? Because I'm thinking a lot of teachers just want to collapse this summer and aren't looking for more work. And maybe it'd be good job opportunities for recent credential candidates out of Humboldt State or elsewhere who might want to get themselves on our substitute teacher list, because it seems like we're always looking for substitute teachers. So, for HSU credential candidates who are looking for some job experience and some references and that kind of thing, it might be a really good opportunity if we don't have a whole bunch of regular teachers who are jumping at the, bit to do this. And it'd be a way to identify potential future candidates for teaching positions or substitute positions.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Also, one of the things that I'm looking at is students are depressed. Students are having issues going through the pandemic, etc. And I still do not see music in our district. And I think that one of the things I have read over and over is that music is one of the better ways of positive mental health practices. So I know they're saying, don't sing, you can't, everybody in the room can't sing because they may be exhaling COVID whatevers, but there's got to be some way that we can implement music for some students. That's the only thing that keeps them in school. Not everybody's in sports. That's another incentive.
They can sing outside.
Well, and they can use string instruments. Do not spread that kind of stuff. String instruments like pianos.
Because ours works every
guitars,
Thursday, and she
violins.
has, that's about the only one.
Those kinds of instruments are the string instruments. You can use string instruments and they don't spread germs.
Right.
So yeah, I agree that Rick Gordon is doing his guitar lessons at Trinity Valley, and that's very popular. So yeah, so
arts too. Students, especially the ones who are searching for emotional expression, emotional support, getting them into, a few years ago when Maggie had students developing rap, rap style poetry, hip hop and recording and, introducing them to a recording studio and the whole process. The students really got into that.
We do have a recording studio at the high school that a lot of it was purchased by the Merv George Memorial Fund at Humboldt Area Foundation. And we've been on distance learning ever since it was put in. So I would like to, I really, because that was the only thing that kept my husband in school was music and sports. Classes, he didn't care.
It became an important part of his life and a lot of other people's. He sang at my wedding.
I'd like to see some of this AB 86 money used for teachers to get training in reading, teaching reading. I mean, you can take classes from different colleges that will give you a week-long, 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night classes on teaching reading. And that was one of the most valuable things that I did as a teacher was take classes like that. And I'd like to see our teachers have availability to do that. And I think this educator training down here on number 2, it would fall into that category along with the professional development reading training in the new literacy program that we may be adopting.
As well as number 7. Training related to number 7.
On trauma-informed practices, my perception of trauma-informed practices, and I've said it before, starts at the board here on how we interact with one another and how we treat one another. And that isn't happening throughout the district with all of our employees. And I would like to some way bring that to their attention, whatever it takes. I don't know what the answer is. But how we interact with one another as adults is the model that students follow. I was always told, and it's true, they don't, like for parents, our kids don't do what they say, they do what they see us do. And so as adults, we are the role models. And if we're not treating one another fairly, or if we're going behind closed doors of yip, 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 or yip, 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 or there's a lot of that going on. It gets back to me. And I would like to address that issue somehow of how we professionally, courteously treat one another. And I've said it before, it starts here at the board. So that somehow, I don't know what the mechanism or the training is out there, but I'd like to see that addressed.
I think we're all nice people.
I don't know that. All right, finish. I'm gonna straighten up.
So Jen,
Wait a minute now.
I
hear you.
You were asking for ways that we would use this AB 86, which things we would do. And I'd like to see if we're getting more paraprofessionals. It says 74,000 is restricted to paraprofessionals. Possibly we could train them in giving the tests to students, run the students through specific tests to find out where they are, because teachers may not have had the time to do all of this. And if we can do that in a summer school, run them through the tests, then they'll be ready at the beginning of the school year with a basis to go by.
At least they'll know which classes they should be taking,
Yes.
especially
I
at the
really
high
agree.
school. I worry that, some of them have learning losses that are gonna prevent them from taking the normal schedule of classes for, like if I was a sophomore this year or junior next year. And they might have to take a modified schedule, to get back up to where they should be. And if they could do some of that catching up at summer school, it'd be really great.
We might need to do the testing before the school year's out. In fact, wouldn't we are we doing any of our
I
testing this
heard
year?
that's gonna be way.
That way we know who needs to get into summer school too, right?
We need to offer it to whoever, but
One
I
of
would
the,
like to offer it to everyone.
some of
But
the,
especially target some that we can identify
Yeah,
as
I would say,
particularly, having, if there are significant learning losses,
Mhm.
just let them know we really want to help them, support them in catching up.
But by having all of the students there, then they're not singled out.
Right, right. But
the
yeah, and
standardized tests don't always give teachers the information they need, especially in the primary grades. And I think that if you ask Jacqueline, she'll know, that there are specific tests you can give kids in grades, K through 3 that'll really narrow down their deficiencies.
Mhm.
Okay, when are you wanting information back by? This is a fast track thing, so
Yes.
we come up with ideas after the meeting, we can still submit them to you. Do you have a
Oh,
deadline?
I do. What I wanted to do is, so I'm hoping that at the May meeting, we'll at least have a draft, and that way we'll have it on the agenda and the public can make comments on it. We'll set up a time that we get public input from families and staff. And then I was just hoping to read back the notes that I took and what I heard, which was providing summer school opportunities, including, looking to recruit recent credential candidates, incentivize employment, and like making employment look good with either retirement. I do have some specific things about, they can't add to their retirement, but they can, there's a formula. Music, art, and students listening to music and being in music classes and recording, teacher training for reading instruction, hiring paraprofessionals, doing student screening, academic screening during the summertime or before the end of the school year, and not exactly in the plan, but model and live trauma-informed practices.
Can we add training for teachers on trauma-informed care? Can we add that to that list? Because I think that's what you're saying, right? Is that you want that implemented throughout the district, the trauma-informed.
That's not all just teachers, though.
I thought we were gonna.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the staff, I shouldn't say teachers, but the staff providing trauma-informed care to staff. You're right, that's the most important, probably would be those that are in contact with them all day.
I think that there are some teachers that have already been trained in trauma informed. They had classes for teachers for, not just teachers.
Yeah, I know. However,
You need to add more, yeah.
However, I don't know if it specifically addressed how we treat one another.
Oh, okay, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, well, good.
So I would like to see that, because I know we've been talking about it a lot, but it never seems to get written down as this is what we want. And I think that what we're saying is we want for our staff to have be exposed to trauma-informed care and be trained on how to implement that on campus. Not just live it, but implement it on campus.
Okay. Model,
A
live.
little bit.
I think another thing is there's been efforts towards, there have been trainings, and I think that looking towards a coordinated effort and providing some, I think there's a lot of holes. There's definitely people that are super committed and are really well informed and are able to, provide classrooms that do reflect that. And there's people that, live it and model it. And I think, but it's just not consistent. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to really kind of, reset and make that a
It's
universal
opportunity.
offering.
It's an opportunity to make it part of our school culture.
There you
I think
go.
that's what we're looking for, is we want it to
Love
become
that.
part of our school
Change
culture.
that needs to happen.
Jen, one other thing that crossed my mind here is that as you're getting input from various groups, we do need to set a meeting time for the board to meet with the tribal education directors and chair, if the chair wishes to go. We're supposed to have a spring board meeting. I would like that to be a separate meeting, not tagged on to our May meeting, but I know I'm number one, I get burned out on special meetings, but I think this should be a special meeting. Then we can get it set up whenever, maybe before our May meeting, but they would have input also on this.
Yes, definitely. And so that with the IPP task force, looking at the recommendations.
Well, in addition to the IPP task force, we're supposed to have a March meeting according to our Indian policies and procedures with the tribes.
Okay.
It says spring and we normally do it in March, but it's still spring.
Okay.
Feels like summer.
Did anybody have anything else they wanted me to write down? I have just a big list of notes, and we'll collect information, and you're welcome to send me any other ideas, and I think that, one of the things that in the business office, at least I have struggled with, is keeping track of all of the different monies and what they can be applied for. So it would be helpful if you have a recommendation, or that it's specific and you're saying, oh, this fits, I can see this action fits into this expanded learning opportunities. But, my hope is to at least have some of the ideas and the, actions planned out for the May meeting, which is, we have to start getting ready for already.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the discussion on the local control and accountability plan.
Okay. Sorry, I was just writing my last notes there. Oh, I didn't put anything on the agenda. So in the information sheet, I'm going to read what is printed in the board packet. The Local Control and Accountability Plan, the LCAP, is a 3-year plan in which our district identifies actions and services funded by our local control funding formula, the LCFF, to support outcomes for our students. CDE, the California Department of Education, requires that the LCAP address all of the state priorities, which are in 3 broad categories. These categories may be helpful in guiding the development of our district's goals. So the document that is attached, that has the kind of periwinkle color and the gold and the salmon color or pink, take the state priorities and group them based on these broad categories of conditions of learning, engagement, and student outcomes or pupil outcomes. And, we work really strongly in consultation with the Humboldt County Office of Education. They review our LCAP. And a few years ago when I was at an LCAP workshop, they had a document similar to this. I created this, but it was based on something that they had provided in helping schools or helping districts write their LCAP and making sure that each of these priorities are identified in each of the goals. And I've had discussions with Jennifer Fairbanks, who is the person at HCA who reviews KT's LCAP, about developing goals that are broad and address conditions of learning, engagement, and student outcomes, to make sure that we have all of the state priorities. Because the goals are an overarching broad goal, and then we get really specific with how we're going to measure progress towards those goals. But I thought that this is really important for you to have in your hands, to see that once we bring drafts of the LCAP, that we have to identify which state priorities are addressed in each of the goals. And I wanted to have it on the agenda so that it went out into the, in the board packet so that, folks could get a look at it because it's a different way of organizing.
Okay. I thought it was very helpful. And again, what I saw under visual and performing arts, I'm going to be squawking about music for all grade levels. I mean, even at the kindergarten lower, you have the triangles, you have the tambourines. There, my first grade teacher here, Virginia Marshall, always had something going, which was fun, and all the kids enjoyed it. So I think we need to get our kids smiling. That's one way.
We do have number 8, other studies that may be prescribed by the governing board, which we could include the Indian land tenure.
Oh, good. Yes. That puts it together really nicely. It is supposed to be local control. Of course, we have a million state things we need to follow, but the idea is giving the local education agency that right. So thank you. Both of those comments are really helpful. So I wanted to present this to you. So again, if you have comments, I'm going to write down music and I'm going to write down the Indian land tenure curriculum just as our ideas so that I can get some direction about how we are assigning our money to support these different priorities.
Where this says driver's education, are you talking about preparation for the test or behind the wheel driver's education?
I think ours is, I'm going to let Craig Cornelson address that, but I don't think it's behind the wheel. I think it's
That's not behind the wheel. That's the preparation piece. There used to be the driver's training option, which would be the hands-on where you ride with the instructor, but we don't offer that. It's just driver education. And then there's also our health component that we're required to teach.
Might be a way to get kids to come to summer school.
I think that's a really good idea. Chicken break.
Is there some reason why we don't offer the hands-on?
Yeah, behind the wheel.
Yeah, I know that in this last year I can understand, but possibly in the summertime,
Yeah, and you could contract with a private professional company, so we're not trying to provide the dual brake vehicle and the.
Is that a possibility? Is that something we should look at? I think that's a really good idea.
I like that too. We want the hands-on behind the wheel training.
It's about $300.
Yeah, I know it's expensive, and that's why it's very expensive.
What
And
were
it's
you
hard to
saying?
get the kids to town, and so what happens is you have a number of kids driving to school without a license because you can't get them to school to Eureka
Right.
for 6 weekends.
Actually,
so
I won't say I have, but I know 30-year-old men that are driving around.
Well, there used to be one of the driving schools out town that he would come up here and let kids around here. It cost $250 per student.
is that an
per-
option that
per
we should look
person.
at?
Looks like Craig wants
We used
to
have
address this.
hands-on driving through.
Go ahead,
our
Craig.
school.
Yeah.
Mike Wright used to do it, I think.
I love the idea. I'm not volunteering myself for the car, but I love the idea. I think that's really, I had that option. I know a lot of us in our years back when we were in high school. I know we were one of the board members and I, we graduated the same year from the same school, and we had that option when we were in high school in McKinleyville. So it was driver's education, driver's training. So if we could make that happen, I would absolutely. That would be it'd be a great service to our kids. So I could work with Jennifer and see if that's
Okay. Anything else on the discussion item LCAP, Jen?
No, I just, it's just to get us started, and, we've collected a lot of information with the, priorities that the community has had. Academics came out as we didn't frame the questions as what needs the most improvement. It was framed as, what do you want us to pay the most attention to and make as a priority? And core academic instruction came out. So that would be on the pink sheets with pupil outcomes, increasing the proficiency of our students, giving our students supports. And, you know, Carrie tied back to that with doing additional supports for teachers, because teaching reading is it's tricky business. And so we owe it to our kids to support our teachers to be able to provide really, you know, good curriculum and really good instruction. So I just want, it's all connected. It's a matter of us just coordinating those services. But if you all had any other comments, I'm happy to take any notes. There's additional surveys going out and stakeholder engagement meetings as well.
Okay. Under our information items, we have a whole packet of all of the printed reports that have come to us. I've read every one and I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. And I refer back to it time and again and again. I would like to see our public information officer take notes from our meeting and from these informational items and blow our horn out in the public and the paper. What our students are doing, what's happening at school. There's a lot of things that are going on, and I really, really think that this is a basis for drawing a lot of that information. I like the reports that have come in. Thank you, thank you. I know a lot of work has gone into it. We do read it. We're trying to streamline our meetings, and if we gave everyone 10 minutes for all of this, we'd be here past our deadline. So thank you, everyone, for putting in your reports.
Awesome.
They're appreciated, and I would like to see them, things drawn from them and put in the paper to show our community the great things that are happening, programs and what our student activities and different things that have done. Like the two students that did the presentation for us. I love that. So great. Any other comments before? Do we want to, Jen, do we want to go ahead and try to set a meeting time for our tribal board consultation meeting?
I think if I could have a couple of options, that way, you know, I can present those.
Okay, Tuesdays are always good for me. I don't know about you guys.
Let me get my calendar out. Do we want, will that be part of the meeting?
What's that?
I was just wondering if we should adjourn and then do dates, or if we want to do it, the dates right now.
We can get it in the information here and get it in the
have it recorded.
Then we'll adjourn.
Okay. Pull up the calendar. So how much time, Lauralee, do you usually schedule?
I would say hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay. So our next regular board meeting is Tuesday, May 11th. So there's 2 Tuesdays between now and then.
Okay.
We have Tuesday, April 27th. I am not available until 5:30. And then we have at 5:30, I'm available. I'm scheduled through to 5:30, and then there's Tuesday, May 4th.
Okay, so the options are, do you want to choose it? Oh, either one of those then, and we'll So either April 27th or May, what was the other one?
May 4th.
May 4th. Okay. Possibly those dates. Okay.
Okay, and we should be able to figure that out by the end of the week. I can email everyone
Okay.
and let them know which date works for tribal ed.
I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Martha moves. Is there a second? Deb seconds. Roll call.
And roll call. Trustee Myers, Trustee McLaughlin, Trustee Waddy, Carrie, Trustee Lair Colgrove, Trustee Weld,
Aye.
Trustee Brissell,
Aye.
Trustee George.
Aye. We are adjourned.
At what time here? 7?
So now, did we set a date for her meeting?
You was talking.